One of the most terrifying things on the face of the earth is when Americans are united. Mountains can be moved when Americans are united. Nations can be conquered when Americans are united. Culture can be changed overnight whenever Americans are united.
To just side with the prosecution.
Causes is something that Americans thrive on. There's nothing more American itself than to be behind and rallying for a good cause. One of these causes that many Americans, evangelical Americans, found worth rallying behind was hashtag Free Kent, or hashtag Free Kent Hovind. Free Kent Hovind movement took off like a storm. It became so embedded in the culture of the United States that you could rarely drive down the road without spotting Free Kent signs in someone's front yard, or Free Kent bumper stickers on somebody's tailgate. It was very hard to drive around town or even attend church without spotting a neighbor or a friend with a Free Kent t-shirt. Christians, believers of all different denominations, rallied behind the fact that Kent Hovind was thrown into jail unjustly. Kent Hovind was already a household name. What the government didn't anticipate, however, is that they would actually, ignorantly at that, turn Kent Hovind from a household name to a Christian martyr with a lot of pull. They also didn't realize that they were literally creating a monster, because every believer in their heart who was aware of the Free Kent situation, the Free Kent movement, knew that Kent Hovind was put away as an example to believers. Kent Hovind was done wrong to show other Christians of the persecution that could come their way if we did not lie down, show the government our bellies, and expose ourselves as afraid and submissive. Kent Hovind became a battle cry. Free Kent almost developed into the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. The Free Kent movement was more than just a pastor who was wrongfully incriminated and put behind bars to try to forget. The Free Kent movement was a reminder that once the government starts arresting and putting away people that are in the top 10 famous Christians in the US, the government can do that to anyone. See, once our religious leaders are persecuted falsely and people stand by and let it happen, that'll become the norm. I think what the government didn't anticipate was the fact that there would be so much outcry. There would be so many phone calls. There would be so many protests outside of courthouses. I think that government workers forgot that we, the people, could still pull together. I actually think that the government workers thought that we, the people, was no longer a community that could be counted on. Those government workers were wrong. Not only did Americans show out en masse to vocalize the fact that we knew our beloved Vindicator was getting the royal shaft, citizens of this country sent out a resounding sound wave to all representatives that we the people are still alive, that we the people have our eyes on them, and that we the people are not so far past and beyond rallying together for a cause like Free Kent.
Yeah. So technically, yeah, I was like about it. I was down. I was ride or die. I was like, I'll go with you and do this. Like, I'll go murder. I'll go take out a. I don't think that's murder.
So it was Chris. It wasn't Kent Hovind.
Well, I don't know. My suspicion is that Mark Stoney wants to kill Chris Jones and Kent, but it doesn't make sense if he's protecting Chris. So maybe he doesn't want to kill Chris.
It is odd. Just Kent.
Steven.
Uh-huh.
Mark hates Kent Hovind.
What do we got there, Joseph? Turned down for what? I don't know.
Sunflower, you got it, okay. That doesn't prove they're related to pigs. The public school textbook showed these family trees with everything related to the pig and the sunflower. You have a common grandpa. That's called stupid. Sunflowers teach a great lesson. You can learn something amazing from a sunflower.
The Free Kent movement was something that was felt generations after the fact, again, when Donald Trump was running for president. It was a passion and a zeal, a patriotic sense of duty, a believer's sense of martyrdom. Kent Hovind started so many fads that go under the radar and he will never get credit for or acknowledgement. Kent Hovind is a household name for many reasons. He is a household name for Dinosaur Adventureland. Kent Hovind is a household name for being among the most famous creation vindicators in the world. Kent Hovind is a household name for men who would stand up to the government and tell them, you are not entitled to what's God's. But I think the thing that made Kent Hovind the biggest name is Free Kent Hovind. Let's go check that out.
This is Kent Hovind. It is the May 23rd, 2015, and I wanted to share what's going on with my situation. I'm still wearing an orange jumpsuit, obviously, still in the Santa Rosa County Jail, and I should have gone home Monday. Here's the situation. Let me explain how it works for everybody so you know who to call and what to do. In 2007, Congress passed a law called the Second Chance Act, which says if a person's in prison for the first time and it's nonviolent, they can be given 6 months home confinement off the end of their sentence.
All right, so let's just recap so we're all on the same page. Kent Hovind is being held in the United States as a religious political prisoner under the farce of structuring a crime which, as described in great detail on the previous episode, we've explained almost every American in the United States is guilty of. It's a law that they use to catch drug dealers, but that actually, in terminology, absolutely applies to all Americans. There's no way around it. So we can see the abuse of power taking place. We can start to draw a picture of why. We showed how dangerous DVD number 5 was to the establishment, which, by the way, run the biggest pedophile ring in the world.
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I did. Could you please give us your name? Jeffrey Epstein.
This has been drawn through conclusions leading to Jeffrey Epstein that has been pointing fingers back to the Clinton administration since the 90s. None of this is new. However, it is all now becoming mainstream. The first tip of the exposure of these demonic people engaged in these sex trafficking rings of children, the first exposures were done by God himself as retaliation for the persecution of one of his anointed, Kent Hovind.
What you're learning tonight is very disturbing.
Yes, an assistant U.S. attorney from Florida finds himself on the wrong side of the law tonight. He's accused of going after a 5-year-old girl from right here in Metro Detroit.
The intended victim is from Macomb County.
Dr. Kent Hovind has spent the last 8 years in prison for things he didn't do. Charged with structuring a law which the IRS has since apologized for and changed their policies regarding, yet all the while, Dr. Hovind was in prison. For those who are not following the latest court case, Kent was put back on trial with the same judge, Judge Margaret Rogers, who put him away for 8 years on bogus charges. Now the retrial of Dr. Hovind. They have once again thrown bogus charges at him, all of which, except for one, have not stuck.
Okay, it's March 12th. Here's the verdicts as the jury read them. Kent E. Hovind, he had 4 counts against him. Count 1, conspiracy to commit mail fraud, unable to come to a verdict. Count 2, mail fraud, unable to come to a verdict. Count 3, criminal contempt of court, guilty. Count 4, mail fraud, unable to come to a verdict. So basically, Kent E. Hovind was found guilty of criminal contempt of court, and that was it. The rest of them were unable to come to a verdict. However, criminal contempt of court, as per my understanding, has an unlimited maximum sentence. So with this particular judge, that's a tough situation, and we'll have to wait and see. She put the sentencing for Kent E. Hovind Friday, June the 12th, 2015 at 9 a.m. Anything else anybody wants to say?
You might want to say that the Kent Hovind's criminal contempt of court was from a June 2007 order.
Right. If I understand,
which was barely discussed during the whole proceedings.
Right.
I didn't even know that he had a second contempt
Right.
of court. I just knew the 2012. I didn't know anything about 2007. I was there for most of the trial.
Right.
Right now it is being deliberated whether Dr. Hovind will once again return to prison for charges which have no limited sentence. What that means is the judge can arbitrarily assign any amount of time she wants to Dr. Hovind for contempt of court, something that occurred back in 2007, when all he was doing was attempting to fight against the charges against him.
Yes, we need to get as many letters as we can to the defense attorney, Thomas Keith, here in Pensacola, Florida. They need to be addressed to the judge and sent care of Thomas Keith.
Amen.
And
Amen.
support of Kent.
And should we also write Mr. Miller, the congressman?
I would recommend that we all write Jeff Miller.
Okay.
Any of the congressional leadership here.
Okay.
We need to be contacting them and putting as much pressure as we can on for a pardon.
Amen.
See, the establishment thought that putting Kent Hovind in prison for 10 years would stop Kent Hovind. But they were wrong. Being in prison did not stop Kent Hovind from witnessing. Kent Hovind led almost 800 men to the Lord.
Welcome to our YouTube channel. This is Kent Hovind testing out a new camera. This is going to be a short one. Hopefully we'll be able to get all the techno stuff worked out where this will be even better quality. You can see all the stuff in the background and everything. Thank you so much, Max, for the new camera and tripod and everything. Appreciate you. I got a letter in the mail yesterday, I believe. Carl Heath was one of the prisoners I led to the Lord while I was in the hole in Yazoo City, Mississippi. I never met him. We were talking through the air conditioning vent, and he was just very ready and anxious to know the Lord, and amazing opportunity there to witness through the AC vent while we're both in solitary confinement, or at least in the hole. Here's a letter that he sent me, and if you'd like to write to him, I think it'd be a great blessing. This is going to be a real short video because it is a test of the new camera system. Okay. Dear Brother Kent, I pray that you and your family are doing well. I want to thank you for saving my soul. Technically, it was the Lord saved him, not me. Okay, I can't save anybody. I walked away from being a Mormon. You opened my eyes. By the way, we did talk a lot about Mormonism through the vent there. You opened my eyes in so many ways. God bless you. I read the Bible each day now. Today, I read about how we become increasingly aware of our sinfulness and weakness. How I know and see now that I walk with the Lord when I do sin, I see it and feel bad. The few letters I did get from people has been a blessing. Please, could you put my address on YouTube? Getting letters of the Word of God not only puts a smile on my face, but helps me so much with reading my Bible. I don't know if you heard the good news, but I will be out of the hole next month and on my way to a new prison. I am so done with the old life and the things I was doing. This September of 2015, September 7th, is 4 years of being sober from all drugs. Smiley face. It feels good, and I know that with God's help, please keep my family in your prayers as I will do the same for you. God bless you. Take care.
Being in prison for 10 years, they thought would stop Kent Hovind from baptizing people. It didn't. Kent Hovind baptized hundreds and hundreds of men in the faith as new believers. They thought putting Kent Hovind away for 8 to 10 years would stop the spread of his materials, but it didn't. Homeschooling groups spread his material around like hotcakes.
The more you study about what's happening in the world and the New World Order coming soon, just read Psalms 2. It'll calm you right down. It's a good tranquilizer. The kings of the earth set themselves, the rulers take counsel together against the Lord, against his anointed, saying, let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us. He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh. God is laughing at their plans for a new world order.
I think our nation is under attack from an invader that's riding our lap. It's not Iran or Iraq, and in fact, it's an inside plan, an organized trap. No other country that I'd rather be than the US of A, the land of the free, the home of the brave. But what can I say? It seems like our freedoms are melting away as each generation becomes more complacent, lazy and ignorant, scared, independent, afraid to be bold and stand for what's right, enslaved and controlled and frozen with fright. The only thing needed for evil to prosper is those who know better, unwilling to stop it. United we stand, divided we fall. It's time we demand that these problems got solved. As a nation, there's anticipation. We're praying for justice and exoneration. We've been waiting and we've been patient. Now we demand whole vindication. On the edge as a nation, there's anticipation. We're praying for justice and exoneration. We've been waiting and we've been patient. Now we demand whole vindication. These government agents forgetting their servants, abusing their powers, it makes people nervous. And now we see riots against cops and judges, a rush to pass judgment with all that it touches. They imprison people for victimless crimes, then lobby with unions to rob them all blind. Just think for a minute if all of their tickets to standing by all of us driving the speed limit depended on inmates to finance the system, incentives to keep them locked up in the prison. Now what would they do if no one broke laws and all of us just sat and sang kumbaya? I ask you to wonder and ponder these questions. How far would they go to maintain job protection? Breeds a seduction that feeds us corruption, and most of us all sit around and do nothing. As a nation, there's anticipation. We're praying for justice and exoneration. We've been waiting and we've been patient. Now we demand whole vindication. On the edge as a nation, there's anticipation. We're praying for justice and exoneration. We've been waiting and we've been patient. Now we demand whole vindication. Creating criminals, losing our sovereignty. Prisons with interest in human commodities placed inside cages for ages and ages. Creating wages we demand whole vindication. On the edge as a nation, there's anticipation. We're praying for justice and exoneration. We've been waiting and we've been patient. Now we demand whole vindication.
He really kicked this whole, what's the proper role of government? Should the IRS be here? And was very outspoken about that. And somebody took one of his tapes, sent it to the IRS, and said, this guy is a tax protester. And that's what actually kind of started a whole investigation on Kent Hovind. Because of the stance he was taking, and because of the nature of his just, listen, I'm not breaking the law, and there's nothing you can do about it, stance, that he was made a target by the government. Made a target by the government. Made a target by the government.
There was no stopping it. They created a monster. The wicked establishment, the corrupt swamp, created a monster. They found the right charismatic Southern gentleman. They found the right Baptist pastor with a backbone and spine of steel. They just picked the wrong day. That was their mistake. And they picked someone that was charming enough to unite people behind a movement. Something we haven't really seen in a political politician even since, let's be honest, Ronald Reagan. There's few people that Americans will get out of their house for in this day and age and rally outside a courthouse in front of the government in the rain. People did it for Kent Hovind. I believe people would do it again today for Kent Hovind. See, the government made a huge mistake. They overlooked the fact that people know he's innocent.
Alright guys, I had to go to Fry's to get a computer because mine stopped working. And my wife, she's putting freaking Hovind on all the laptops. So anybody that walks by gets to see freaking Hovind. You got him going, babe?
Their internet is very slow.
Freaking Hovind.
They overlooked the fact that creationists are loyal supporters. They overlooked the fact that Kent Hovind is God's anointed, and that there is a hedge of protection around him, that no matter what flames come flying in the form of an arrow from the enemy, Kent Hovind has a hedge of protection around him. He will be protected. He will be safe. He will continue on the gospel. Put him in prison, he'll lead 800 prisoners to the Lord. And when he gets out, he'll reestablish a ministry and he'll get right back to work. Another thing that the government didn't anticipate is that Kent Hovind would fuel a plethora of small creation ministries, including my own. Kent Hovind has made a significant dent in growing the kingdom. Not just souls that will be in heaven, but here on earth. growing ministries, the establishment of new ministries. Kent Hovind is a spiritual father to many a soul. Many. He's led many people to the Lord. He's discipled thousands of people. The government had no idea what they were doing. And now they created a monster. Now they created something that they couldn't control. It spiraled out of control. And it started exposing their own wicked evil deeds. Now they had a problem on their hands. They had Christians calling courthouses. They had Christians calling state representatives. They had a boulder rolling downhill that they were not going to be able to stop anytime soon. Let's get into some of the interviews.
All right, we have Kent Hovind on the line. He's talking to Nico right now. We're going to put him on the board and go to him as soon as they're ready. He is a political prisoner, and he'll only have 15 minutes on the line with us. We're going to go to Kent Hovind right now. Political prisoner, more than a decade in prison, indicted under structuring that the New York Times will put on screen. Last year admitted is a total criminal fraud. Hearings last month in Congress admitting it's incredible.
Because being in prison did not stop Kent Hovind from doing interviews either.
All right, Dr. Hovind, it's February the 27th, and I've just got a couple of questions for you, sir. Regarding two things. One thing is that it is my understanding, and it just boggles my mind, that this IRS agent Scott Snyder is going to be allowed a special seat at the prosecutor table and will be called in to provide witness testimony. And because he's going to be able to see the other witnesses, it just seems like a completely wrong thing to happen. And I'm curious if you could care to discuss that or comment that.
Hi friends, this is Coach Dave Dobbenmeyer at newswithviews.tv at newswithviews.com. Thanks for tuning in today. I just returned from Pensacola, Florida with a group of friends of mine, and we went down to stand with our friend Dr. Kent Hovind, who's on trial in Pensacola, Florida for the charge of mail fraud. I think it's important that I give you a little bit of information that's certainly been misreported in the press. And anytime you do a Google search or anything like that on Dr. Hovind, the wrong information comes up. Let me make this very clear. Dr. Kent Hovind has served 100 months in jail, not for tax issues. You'll do a Google search and they'll say that he's a tax protester or a tax evasion or whatever. Dr. Kent Hovind has spent 100 months in jail, 8.5 years, for the issue of structuring. And just recently, the commissioner of the Internal Revenue Service, John Koskinen, just came out and issued an apology to Americans all across the spectrum for having misused the idea of structuring in seizing bank accounts. If my recollection is correct, it was like 127 people across America last year who had their bank accounts seized because of charges of structuring. So it would be important for us to understand what structuring is. It was a policy that was put in place to help law enforcement deal with drug dealers who were trying to launder money. And the law said that anytime a cash deposit of $10,000 or a cash withdrawal of $10,000 was made, it had to be reported to the IRS. Well, people began to get around that by taking out less than $10,000, maybe $9,500, which is what Dr. Kent Hovind did. Now, there's nothing illegal about doing that. It is his own money. He would go to the bank and he would take out the money, $9,500 a week, maybe, and pay the people that he owed money to, pay the expenses of their ministry, of the people who worked for him, instead of having to do 1099s or whatever was involved with that. Well, the IRS put together this policy based on structuring, put in place specifically for drug dealers, and that is what they charged Kent Hovind with, was structuring, not tax evasion. He never evaded any taxes at all. And then to top it off, folks, after Kent Hovind, over a period of several years, took $9,000 a week out of his bank account, to pay his bills. He didn't stuff it in a pillow or under a mattress. It was his money that the ministry had earned after Kent Hovind had amassed about $434,000 in withdrawals over the period of time paying his bills. The IRS said, listen, because that money was involved in structuring, that money belongs to us. And they tried to seize $434,000 from Dr. Hovind. And of course, he didn't have $434,000 because why? They'd spent it. They'd paid it. They weren't trying to hide anything from anybody. So Dr. Hovind, when he was put in jail, then they went about the idea of trying to seize the property to come up with the $434,000. And what Dr. Hovind is on trial today, folks, he is not a tax protester or a tax evader. What Dr. Hovind is on trial today for, and I consider it piling on, is what they called mail fraud from jail. Now, what he did was a perfectly legal action, filing court actions from jail. He's done that for the 8 years he's been in there, trying to get himself free. He filed a motion whereby he put into the file of his properties a legal document saying, listen, this property is still being contested. This is not a free and clear property. And so when they would do a title search, someone wanted to buy his property, they'd do a title search. This letter would be in there saying, listen, there's some debate as to who owns this property. Buyer beware. You're buying some property that's still in dispute. Perfectly legal that he did it. But because the judge had told him to stop doing that, stop filing the reports, to stop filing the appeals, they found him in contempt of court. So Kent Hovind is in jail, or is in court today for two things: mail fraud. Listen, folks, if he had taken that filing and he had hand carried it to the courthouse, it would not be mail fraud. Do you understand that? It would not be mail fraud. But he couldn't hand carry it. It had to go through the mail. And issue number two, he has the right to appeal while he's in there. But they're also charging him with contempt of court because he continued to exercise his God-given right, his American right to appeal. The First Amendment says the right to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That's what Kent Hovind has done. Folks, he is not a tax protester. He has not refused to pay his taxes. They have seized $434,000 from him already, which was not their money to begin with. And now they want to put Kent Hovind in jail for an additional 20 years. It's amazing. We had the opportunity to be in the courtroom, spent 3 days down there in support of Dr. Kent Hovind, and just want you to know that I believe that the charges that they're bringing against him right now are nothing more than piling on, trying to put him in jail for an additional 20 years. I would request that you'd pray for Dr. Dino, pray for Kent Hovind, that justice would be served. So more than anything in this video, I want to clear something up. He is not a tax protester. He's not in jail for tax evasion. He's not in jail for not properly paying his taxes. He's in jail for a process called structuring, which was designed to be used to combat drug dealers. Is that unbelievable? Pray for Kent Hovind, that justice would be done in his case. This is Coach Dave Daubenmire at newswithviews.tv at newswithviews.com. We'll see you next time.
Now, Kent Hovind is a true American political prisoner. He's been trying to call in from a federal prison. And I don't want to name the federal prison because they'll run in and start harassing him right away. It'll take the bureaucrats a while to figure out where he's at and try to stop the interview. I mean, it's a legal interview, but we've had them try to stop these before. Kent, when they were indicting him a decade ago or more, was on with us. Creation speaker Dr. Kent Hovind has spent already a decade in federal prison, charged up to 100 years for mail fraud. And you look at what he did, it was nothing. He was a science teacher for 15 years, began a full-time creation ministry, became very successful. He debated more than 100 scientists concerning evolution versus creation and created the well-known 7-part video creation series translated in 32 languages. He reached over 1 billion people. He had a very popular theme park that was 501c3, which there's a lot of other Christian theme parks. You're allowed to have that. But you notice you've had thousands, over 10,000 501c3s denied to Christian charities the last 6 years. The number's more like 15,000, but the oldest number is about 10. And more than 10,000 groups audited or indicted. Mainline conservative groups, pro-gun groups, pro-life groups, pro-veteran groups. Anything right of Mao Zedong, basically. But Kent Hovind was charismatic, nice, friendly, great guy. I didn't particularly agree with his brand of creationism. I already talked about that. Doesn't matter. I don't think men's interpretation of the Bible or these transhumanist eugenicists and Darwin's view and social Darwinism, I don't agree with that as well. There's clear jumps in all this and manipulations, and we're not being given the truth. I mean, the evolutionists have been caught in so many Piltdown Man and other frauds, but I'm not going to debate all that. The age of the earth, any of that. I've read the Bible. I have my own interpretation. And it's wild. And the globalists believe something similar, but from their perspective. So they don't even believe, all the top genetic engineers people, they believe in transpermia and panspermia and off-world seeding. They don't believe this. But the point is, even if you disagree with Kent Hovind, why is he in prison with 2020 specials about the incredible fraud? He said dinosaurs were around during Noah's time and Adam and Eve before that. What a kook. And he doesn't pay taxes and he's going to prison. You can go start any church you want and get 501c3. You could teach that Ronald McDonald is the savior. You can teach whatever you want. That's called religious freedom, the First Amendment. But see, he went to prison. He's been set up, so now everybody else is fair game. Who was the minister in Nazi Germany? First they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't one. Then they came for this group. And finally, when they came for me, there was nobody else left to speak. Now, joining us first, and he'll probably ride shotgun with us into Kent being on with us, Mark Adams has been on before. He's writing a book on Congressman Hansen, who I interviewed many years ago. He's sick right now and can't come on. He was indicted multiple times, found not guilty, so they kept arresting him and then driving him around in a truck for months called dieseling until his feet burst. They tortured him in holding cells, you name it, because he was trying to abolish the IRS. You say, why don't more congressmen do that? Because they'll grab you and torture the hell out of you. Federal marshals will. Mark Adams has been fighting for Kent Hovind as well and has the documents and the history. So, Mark, this is about everybody here. But, I mean, such a good, loving, Christian, well-spoken, charismatic, charming guy. I love the fact he's challenging this official religion of Darwinism. And evolution as it's taught is just totally false, been proven false. But regardless, even if Kent Hovind was wrong, he has a First Amendment and a right to be a Christian that teaches his faith, just like Muslims have a right to, their faith. But there's a war on Christians. But let's get into his case for folks that don't know about it right now. Mark Adams.
Well, Alex, it was in 2006. When a jackbooted commie Nazi government Gestapo goon squad arrested Pastor Kent Hovind and his wife Jo at gunpoint inside their home in the dark of night. And then later on that year, Pastor Hovind was convicted on a 58-count indictment. Now, 45 of those counts had to do with so-called structuring. That is, Dr. Hovind was withdrawing money from his bank account in order to fund the needs of his ministry. And for these withdrawals, they were typically more than $5,000, but less than $10,000. And because he was doing that, the government was pursuing him as if he was part of a drug cartel or a terrorist organization.
A guy with no criminal record, a school teacher who had a successful ministry in a theme park, and we just put on screen the New York Times. Let's put it on screen. The headline, Law lets IRS seize accounts on suspicion, no crime reported. That talks about old ladies with tiny businesses. I mean, I pull out cash all the time to give bonuses to people at Christmas and stuff. I mean, I give $300 to employees. It's like $10,000, $15,000 to get all that out. That's not structuring. That's after-tax money. But this is how they use the, quote, rules, not the law, in a reign of terror. Go ahead.
Exactly. The IRS has a reputation of ruthlessly using these so-called structuring laws to terrorize innocent citizens. There was hearings about this last month and the upshot of it is that the IRS would try to curtail.
They said we're going to
that
stop
activity.
doing it and cut it back, and we're sorry for 34,000 innocent people having their lives ruined, or people we threw in prison for no reason, and all our fake juries and the rest of it, because they even go further. But it's just like the ATF last week saying, we won't ban your bullets. They're back this week, and this is a criminal operation.
Are you guys following my pattern? Kent Hovind was done wrong. And what's worse is the government knows they've done wrong, and instead of making it right by paying him restitution, they have shut down YouTube channel after YouTube channel. They have canceled website after website. They have rejected evidence after evidence. There is more blood on the hands of the United States government over Kent Hovind than there is with Donald Trump. Kent Hovind is the original martyr. And we tried to warn you that it would start with Kent and that next they'd be here for us.
Indeed. And in fact, if you look into the court case itself, it gets even worse. The 11th Circuit Court of Appeals upheld his conviction on all of the 45 so-called structuring charges. But in 2013, the 11th Circuit overturned a guilty verdict on a separate case. This was U.S. versus Lang, a separate case of structuring. They overturned the verdict because of the way the federal prosecutors mishandled the case.
And there were clearly orders to go and get him because he was articulate, good-looking, reaching over 1 billion people with his ministry. He was incredibly successful, and so that's why they came after him.
Indeed. And now, and like I said, the bulk of the charges are these so-called structuring charges. The 11th Circuit Court of Appeals upheld the conviction, but then a little more than a year later, when the same kind of case came before them, they overturned the conviction on this guy, Mr. Lang, because of the way the federal prosecutors mishandled his case. But the procedures that the prosecutors used on Mr. Lang were exactly the same procedures that they use on Hovind, but yet they will not apply that ruling retroactively. So, in other words, they overturned the structuring charges against Lang, but even though the same kind of prosecutor misconduct was being applied in Pastor Kent Hovind's case.
Now, something I found to be remarkably surprising was the sheer amount of evidence that has been scrubbed or removed off the internet. And I'm serious when I say I have never seen anything like it in my life. In order to make this documentary, I had to go on search engines that were predominantly popular in other countries. I had to search so many back channels of the internet that you guys know just to find regular footage that would have been all over YouTube 10 years ago. There has been so much information hid from we the people, so much information on the trial of Kent Hovind hidden from you, Joe Plummer. There has been such a deceitful cover-up of wrongdoing on the part of the United States government that there is a massive conspiracy to hide what they did by wiping it all off the internet, by making it so that you cannot find anything pertaining, hardly, to the time of Kent Hovind's arrest, his trial, his defense, or anything other than when he was released. Here's my evidence. Look what we have here. Again. And again. And again. And again.